Now it's time we should move on to our post chapter, in which we are going to discuss our PHP forms, its working, and how to make our form perfect using global variable of post. So in the folder of PHP course that is inside my C drive, XAMPP and htdocs, I'm gonna create one new folder of post. This will differentiate our new chapter of post within this folder. Now inside this folder, I'm just going to copy our simple file of simple.php. See, now we have post folder in which we have file of simple.php and it's inside our PHP course folder. Now let me open this file in our Komodo. Now here I have simple.php file. Now let me save this file with the name of form.php and let's rename it. Okay, so for working with PHP forms, we need one simple and standard HTML form. So I'm just gonna paste one simple form in our body section. So I have pasted this form in which I have this field set, legend and form, and we have this input of username and password, and then we have this input of submit button. This is very ordinary form, nothing special in this form, and I hope you are all familiar with this simple HTML form. Now let's save this and see it in browser first, what we have in our browser. Okay, localhost, and in the folder of post we have this file of new form.php. See, now we have HTML5 form and that's our legend. Then we have username, password, and then just a submit button. We haven't have any kind of PHP functionality on our form. So let's work with PHP now. Move back to my editor. As you can see in our action attribute, we don't have anything right now. Normally we put our address of our server or the file that have the PHP code for our HTML5 form in the action attribute. But at this moment we don't have anything. That's why I leave it as empty. So before doing anything, let's add one PHP tag on the top of our document, and inside this PHP tag I'm gonna add two variables with the name of username and password. Now we need to connect this username and password with our these respective field of ID username and this ID of password. And for capturing our respective field, we have to know the name of our input field. And in this case of username, we have this name of username for this input. So by using our global, super global variable of post, I'm gonna grab our this input field and connect it with one variable. Now inside the brackets of our post variable, I'm going to add the name of our username here, and this way our this variable of post is going to be connect with our input field with the name of username. So remember one thing, you cannot apply any kind of functionality on your HTML5 form until you connect it with your PHP code. So first I'm connecting this username with our PHP code by declaring one variable with the name of username. You can choose any kind of variable name here. I just choose username to make it more understandable. And now I'm connecting our username with this variable of PHP. So I have to put this username inside our global variable of post here, and similarly if you want to connect your password with some field, you have to grab this name of your input field from here and you have to put it with your PHP code variable here like this. It's not necessary to use these variable here. You can just remove these variable from here, and by using this post super global variable you can connect it with these input field. So I just use those variable of username and password to make much more sense. It's also similar to the code which we have with the variable. Nothing change because we are just grabbing our username and password in our super global variables. So for making it more sensible, let's go back to our variable structure. See, now we just equal our super global variable of username and password with the username and password. So I have connected my field of input successfully with our PHP code. So now for checking it, I'm just gonna give it one scenario of if condition, and I'm gonna assign one username and password by myself at this instance, and I'm gonna say that if our username is equal to Jazib and our password is equal to Akram, then you should echo something here. So you can say echo welcome our username, and in this case it's going to be Jazib. So you can put directly this variable right here, or instead of that you can put this super global variable right here, because these two are the same as we discussed. So in this case, for eradicating your queries in your mind, I'm just gonna copy this username from here and I'm gonna paste it right here. So I said if username is equal to Jazib and password is equal to Akram, then what should you do? Then you just give it a welcome message that welcome Jazib, and else you can say echo account doesn't exist, try again. Now let's save this and refreshing the page. See, now we have two errors on line 3 and 4, and it's saying that we have undefined index of username and password. Why? Because we do define our variable of username and password, but we haven't applied any kind of functionality on our this button of submit here. So we need to apply the PHP code which we wrote on these lines on our submit button, that is here on line 36 in our HTML code. So in closing all of this code in our submit button, I just have to add one simple condition of if and check whether our submit button has something on it or not. So I can say that if our submit button with the name of submit for super global variable has this whole bunch of code, let's close this if condition bracket here, then you should check my username and password. So what I did here, I just enclose all of my PHP code into one simple if condition, and I said that if my variable of submit with the name of submit in my HTML code is set using this function of set, then you should proceed next to the next amount of PHP code. Now let's save this and refreshing the page. See, now we don't have any error. So if I give it some name of Jazib and password of Akram, it's not showing because we made its type to be password. That's why we are having this dot in our password field. It's so much obvious because it's just a simple HTML. So if I show you here, we have type of password in our input field. That's why we are having the dot, and we are having the our text in our username field because we made its type to be text. So if I give it password of Akram, then see we are having the message of welcome Jazib. So if it fill up with the wrong information, I can give it information of Alex and password of Akram. Account doesn't exist, try again. So we connected our simple HTML fields with our PHP, and then we applied the functionality all of PHP code into our submit button because we are seeing the result by pressing the submit button. So if I try to be more sophisticated, I have to add one else statement here, so that if the user see the page at the first time, he will be able to have the information like login required or fill up the form or whatever like that. So for giving the else scenario to our submit button, I can say that else echo login required, and let's close this information in H2 to see it in big form. This one as well in H2, this one as well. Saving this one out, refreshing the page. Now it's saying that login required. Just because we haven't have any kind of information in here, so it's executing the else structure of our submit button. So if I gave it some wrong information like wrong username and password to be correct Akram, submit, account doesn't exist, try again. So if I gave it correct information, Jazib, and password to be correct one Akram, submit, then welcome Jazib. So this was very basic but quite practical lecture for working with forms and PHP and using HTML simple form to make it more dynamic that can easily respond to user certain actions. Now before ending this lecture, we have one problem in our form, and it's not although showing in our browser. Why? Because we are working in our same file and I haven't give it any kind of action attribute in our HTML code. So we are working on form.php file, so I have to add here the name of our file which have the PHP code. Remember this thing. So it's quite worked pretty much well without adding the action attribute here. So now let's save this and seeing it in browser. See, nothing changed. But do remember, when you are having the same amount of HTML code and PHP code in your single unit, means your single file, then you must have to add the name of that file that contain your PHP code here. Or in case if you are working on some online server, you have to add the address of that file which is going to be the one with the PHP.